there was a real fear that if you let blacks get control, everything would change. And there was no, with some people, there was no idea that there would be any fairness or any democracy or anything, that there would be a decent, well-run city government, county government, whatever. It was like, if this happens, we're lost. And it was just a terrible fear. People felt a sense of being powerless. Maybe people who would have been willing to go along and go further and move forward sooner wouldn't have had any notion of any way that they could impact this, or that anything that they could personally do that would be helpful. Even as now, most of us live in a society that we think is far from perfect, and yet between now and 2 weeks from now, we're probably not going to do very much to change it. Partly because we have no sense of what we could do. And in the South it was that way. Even people who were willing to take risk and move out were just not able to visualize what kinds of things could help. Or, how would you get enough people, if everybody that was willing to go to a certain step would move at once, then it would be accomplished. But we were all scattered out there. Nobody knew who else was willing to do what or make what changes. And there was not a lot of leadership. And leadership in the churches was, a lot of it was really forward-thinking and helpful, and then a lot of it was people who knew what the right thing to do was but were terrified of taking any stand that would upset the congregation.
Gracie here. I hope you guys are doing amazing. Yes, I'm doing well too. As always, to the community, thank you so very much for your support to me. I really appreciate, and I don't take any of you for granted. And if you landing on this channel for your very first time, please consider subscribing so you become part of this amazing family. And thank you so very much in advance for that subscription. We do a lot on here: inspirational Black history, enlightening, educational, viral moments, stories about Africa, anything. As long as I land on it, I'll bring it out here and we express our unapologetic opinions about it. And this is a safe space for all of us to speak, so as long as we're not hurting anybody, why not? Yes, so enable that bell button too so that you don't miss any story from us. And thank you so very much in advance for the subscription. Today's episode is an interesting one. It's an enlightening one. It's an educational one. I've always had questions whenever I bring episodes of discrimination and racism, that why the hate? Why do these people hate us so much? At the back of my mind, I've always thought that there's something that is so scary about us that these people cannot stand. I know that all of you are aware of how peculiar and mysterious we are, and the aura that we give off is unique. And indeed, it is something that really doesn't settle well with these people. So whenever they react and do these things, even still in 2024, it's always an expression or a revelation of how actually inferior they are, because they can't take anything fairly. And so this lady comes out to express and reveal what most racist people are afraid of. She comes from a racist family. And if we are talking about these things, she comes from the South. Those of you that are coming from the ends of Alabama, Louisiana, Tennessee, especially Alabama, it has not changed that much. That area, I have family over there, and oh my goodness, sometimes it is very, very shameful to even look at the things that are happening there, really. But this lady really points out things that we probably know, or some of the things that we somehow do not know. And I don't have so much to say about this. I'm learning, as many other people need to also learn from this. So we are going to watch this story, and we will definitely come back and say something very, very small about it.
There was a real fear that if you let blacks get control, everything would change. And there was no with some people, there was no idea that there would be any fairness or any democracy or anything, that there would be a decent, well-run city government, county government, whatever. It was like, if this happens, we're lost. And it was just a terrible fear. Southerners are like any other group of people. I mean, there are all kinds of folks that are included, and regardless of where they stood on integration or anything else, there were a lot of really good people who made wrong decisions and not so much did wrong things as failed to do right things. And when you look back on it, try to sort it out and figure out what could have been different. I think one of the things is that people felt a sense of being powerless. Maybe people who would have been willing to go along and go further and move forward sooner wouldn't have had any notion of any way that they could impact this, or that anything that they could personally do that would be helpful. You know, even as now, most of us live in a society that we think is far from perfect, and yet between now and 2 weeks from now, we're probably not going to do very much to change it. Partly because we have no sense of what we could do. And in the South it was that way. Even people who were willing to take risk and move out were just not able to visualize what kinds of things could help. Or, you know, how would you get enough people, if everybody that was willing to go to a certain step would move at once, then it would be accomplished. But we were all scattered out there. Nobody knew who else was willing to do what or make what changes. And there was not a lot of leadership. And leadership in the churches was, a lot of it was really forward-thinking and helpful, and then a lot of it was people who knew what the right thing to do was but were terrified of taking any stand that would upset the congregation. There were people in the churches who wanted to keep the peace in the local church, you know, in the congregation, and so they didn't want to do anything that might cause any kind of dissension. Politicians, even people who knew better, who would have been willing to go further personally or to have the state move forward, were always bound by fear of not getting reelected. And so really people who knew better just stuck with racism for political reasons, is what I think. You know, it was, but a lot of it just in average citizens was just that people didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to help. There still are a lot of strange myths floating around in the South. There were a lot of strange tales from Reconstruction. There's an awful lot of fiction that floats about, and so I have no idea what kind of weird notions people had, but mostly I think it is of losing control. You know, I mean, there was some higher level of trust, even of dishonest or corrupt white politicians, than of a black in some position of authority over you, for people who had grown up with these myths and fears, so that it was easier to stick with somebody that you might not have even cared for who was white. I know that there were people who actually became physically ill every time there was any big desegregation news. I mean, you could just count on it. If you went to their house, you knew they were going to be in bed. It really just was, this was after I was a grown woman, and it was pretty startling to me to discover that there were people that had that kind of, that were bound in that way to racism. But of course there are people who are a lot worse that I didn't happen to know personally. For me, there's a lot of guilt that's involved, because growing up, if you grow up and accept things the way they are, then you have to wonder, you know, why did you accept all of this? Why did you not question more? Or, you know, why didn't you think about all these things that were happening? And I don't know what the answer to that is. My great-grandfather was a really good man, but he was really a racist also. He, I guess, was influenced a lot by things that happened during Reconstruction. And he was not, and he was never a violent person, nor was he, it wasn't something that he spent a lot of time thinking about or talking about, but his views were, I remember mainly his never quite forgiving the Methodist Church for reuniting. You know, there was a Southern Methodist Church for a while, and he didn't think they should have gone back in with the Northern Methodist Church. There were a lot of really good people who were and are racist, and I don't know how you explain or justify, or a lot of people wouldn't even accept the fact that you can be both, but in my belief you can. For instance, there were a lot of people who were willing to accept, when Emmett Till was murdered, there were people who were willing to accept the fact that this was, I don't remember if they said it was a prank or what, but I mean there were stories that this didn't really happen before they found the body, and there were people who were willing to accept that. There were the same kind of attitude was with almost everything, where there was not an immediate finding of a body. There was always this thing, this is something somebody's made up, you know, just a lot of denial. A lot of people who didn't want to believe that this sort of thing would happen, and would refuse to accept the fact that it was happening. I think there were a lot of people who did think it would be stopped, who never thought the change would actually happen, even after it was happening. And I think if there had not been that attitude, if people had known the change was going to happen anyhow, maybe it would have been faster. Maybe the holding the line would not have been so long and painful. But I think that part of the reason that there was not more change is just that people never did accept it as the reality of the day.
First of all, I'm going to appreciate her honesty in the video, and the brutal truths that she exposed and revealed in the video, especially considering the fact that those were really hard periods of time to even come out and admit to these things, which is one of the things that is still happening with racist people. They really don't want to admit that the reasons behind why they are racist to us is because there's that fear of them losing whatever they have one day, and them being in our position that we are in today. As much as things are not as brutal as it used to be, but it is not all the way fair, it's not all the way good. One thing that did not make sense at all to me was when she said that, in her opinion, you can still be a good person and be a racist. I don't know if goodness only means her being loyal to the white race and catering for her own people, but then in the same breath be discriminative, lynch, unalive, take and steal inventions, skip and marginalize a certain group of people that literally built the country that you are in, that gave you whatever that you have. If that is goodness, then in my opinion, that's evil. That's really evil. May I say that a lot of white people are aware of their privileges, be it small or big, and they are aware of how they obtained and how they still maintain these privileges. They are super duper aware that none of what they have, be it generational wealth or anything, mention it, none of it was obtained through transparent means, which is the reason as to why they hold closely and dearly to it, because they know at any point or moment in life they can lose it, and they are super scared because they don't have the capacity and ability to create things from scratch. We are the only people that have the ability and capacity to create things from scratch, so we are not scared of losing anything because we can still come up with things. Them, on the other hand, they don't have that capacity. They don't have that ability. All of what they have has been stolen, has always been from oppressing another group of people, has always been from unaliving, making it sure that Black people feel like they are the second-class citizens even when they built that country. Haven't you ever wondered why white people are super obsessed with power? Because the only thing that can satisfy them and make them feel good about themselves is when they have control over others. This power is going to be an obstruction of the evil things they do. We are all aware of the capacity of power to hide and cover up all these evil things, which still covers up all the evils that these people do. Ask yourself which group of people came from Europe, divided and created colonies in Africa, took slaves that built the Americas, literally took minerals, artifacts, unalived kings, and literally just destabilized the entire continent. Because first of all, they had already fought off and fought, unalived their own people. That tells you these are the type of people that can't be satisfied with just mere things that we look at as a people and be like, this is good enough. For them, that's not good enough. Which tells us that most of the times if you see such a group of people that behaves like that, that is a group that is really insecure, that has a vacuum inside them. There's a hole that they are trying to really satisfy and feel so bad. And the only way they can achieve that is through marginalizing, oppressing, suppressing, and keeping the Black community down. This is not just about the Americas. This is not just about the West. Look at how they are terrorizing the continent of Africa, the continent that we call so rich, but we do not even have the control over our minerals. We don't have the authority to literally use it to develop ourselves. Everything that is produced here or that comes out of our ground belongs to them. And that takes me to the reason as to why they're holding so close to this power. In their minds, in the minds of the racist people, there's no way we can all thrive on the same equal footing. There's no way we all can be on the same level and enjoy the same rights. To them, we will take it away from them. That fear that we will do to them as they have done to us. That's one of the things, that's one of the reasons as to why they are super scared of you being on the same equal footing. Because to them, they must still stay up there. That's the only way they feel really, really good about themselves. When I was beginning with this video, I said that we are such a peculiar, mysterious group of people. The aura that we give off, the energy, the power, it's just in blood. It is just natural, and they have to make sure that they steal that one away from you to keep themselves taking what rightfully belongs to you. But the moment we realize our position as a people, they will lose it, and they don't want to go back. They are scared for their generations. They are scared for their children. That's all racist people are scared of. So I hope this video really kind of created awareness and answered some of the questions as to why we ask ourselves, why are these people really hateful? Why do they hold so dearly to what they have? Because they know none of it belongs to them. All of it has been stolen. The guilt that they have, the fact that we can overtake them, that's something that they are not willing to give up. What do you think of the video? Put your thoughts in the comment section. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And I'll see you in another video. My name is Gracie. I love you. Bye.